Good morning. It's Sunday, February 8th. Thanks for joining us for News 8 this week. As AI becomes more a part of our lives, there's lots of questions about how to integrate it into the workplace, more specifically, how to responsibly do that. That's what Patrick Johans over at the University of Iowa has been contemplating. He teaches business analytics and authored a book called AI in Business, Creating Value Responsibly. We talked to him about what that means and what advice he'd have for business leaders and workers. And joining us now is Associate Professor of Instruction, Patrick Johans. Professor, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. I've done a number of AI interviews, and I feel like every time I do an interview about AI, I sort of have to reset a little bit and understand the landscape that perhaps has changed in a short amount of time since I last asked this similar question. Can you give us a sense of what the AI landscape is, particularly in the business world? And I'm thinking to myself, um, is every business having to wrangle with this? Is it being used much more broadly than it was, say, 3 months ago or 6 months ago? Give me a sense of kind of how you see things.
We view AI as a disruptive technology. It's changing the way businesses do things, in some areas more than others. We do see it occurring more in the workplace. Say, with call centers, a good example is Charter Communications. It's a big cable company, primarily located on the East Coast, but they laid off over 1,000 people from their call centers. And when we look at that, it's because they brought in chatbots. So instead of getting somebody to talk to, you talk to a computer now. We've got to learn how to handle that responsibly. Companies need to look at making sure they reskill people or be able to find them AI augmented jobs. So, kind of the ideal situation is the people that were handling the calls before might shift to a role where they will handle the more complex cases that AI can't handle. They can handle the standard things. But likewise, we see people using ChatGPT, perhaps to edit emails and the like. That is happening more and more, and it does raise productivity.
Okay, last question for you. And I think the book that you're working on, AI in Business, Creating Value Responsibly, will help us here because you mentioned that it's filled with some quick bits of advice, practical advice. So give me maybe two pieces of advice here. One for an employer on how to implement this responsibly, and perhaps one for a worker who is being asked to integrate this into their work.
Well, for the employer who is wanting to bring in AI, I guess my recommendation would be to start with a cross-functional team. You need to get views of different people from throughout the company, both to have a successful integration of AI, but also to completely understand the impacts. The other aspect about creating a cross-functional team is because you're getting inputs from people throughout the company, you're better able to anticipate and build buy-in. So rather than just coming from top down, this is what we're doing, you've got a better understanding of the situation. Companies that have been most successful have used reskilling programs for people who are about to go out in the workforce from college or are in the workforce right now. How do you handle this AI world? Well, become knowledgeable about AI. It can take away some of the boring parts of your job in some situations. And I would say for those people and for people just using AI to plan their next trip, remember that the purpose of a generative AI like ChatGPT or Copilot is to create an answer for you. Always verify that it's an accurate answer.
All right. Professor. A lot of good advice there. A good discussion. I appreciate it. It's always interesting to discuss these issues because they are complicated and at times could be controversial as well. So always a fun discussion. Thanks for taking some time to chat with us.
My pleasure, John.
Coming up in about 7 minutes, we'll tell you about an event happening later this week at Augustana aimed at sharing some perspectives on a controversial topic. We hope you're enjoying your Sunday morning. Let's get you ready for the rest of the day and the week ahead with your accurate forecast. Welcome back. Coming up later this week, Augustana will host a free discussion open to the public on immigration. It's called Immigration, Facts, Fiction, and Solutions. It'll feature Peter Kivisto, Professor of Social Thought Emeritus at Augustana College. He joined us in studio this week to share what shapes his perspective, what you can expect to hear from him, and what types of conversations he's hoping to have. And joining us now is Professor Kivisto. Professor, great to have you on the show this week.
Thank you.
Of course, we're talking about immigration. Yeah. Before we get into the topic at hand, I'd like our viewers to understand a little bit about your background, your areas of study. What's your expertise?
Okay. I study immigration and religion. Those are probably the two primary areas of study. My career began when I actually got interested in my ancestry. My grandparents were from Finland, and so I did my dissertation and my first book on Finnish immigrants from a century ago.
You know, when we think about how we each form our own opinions about any topic, including immigration, there are so many things that inform that opinion. And there's so many lenses through which we can view a situation. Help us understand how your studies have informed your perspectives. Because a lot of us don't have the benefit of years of research, years of study, right? We perhaps are looking at social media or mainstream media, whatever it is, and that's what's informing us. Tell us about how you've come to some of your conclusions.
Well, I think that one of the things that I was aware of early on was that some people are interested in embracing people who are different, religiously different, linguistically different, or culturally different in some fashion, and other people find that troubling. Okay, and I've been aware of that distinction. I think one of the things that attracted me to the study of immigration was that I was somebody who was on the inclusive side. I'm interested in. I like living in diverse places with people who are not the same as me. But I know that that's not the way everybody is. I know that there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable in those kinds of settings. And so part of my study has been studying the immigrants themselves, and then the other part has been studying the response of the native-born to immigrants.
Has your perspective then, based on kind of where you started and then what you've researched, has your perspective developed at all?
It's developed. One of the things that I have become increasingly aware of, since my earlier work was on the past. I was doing historical sociology, and roughly around the year, middle of the 1990s, I turned my attention to contemporary immigration when it was exploding, right? And one of the things that I was aware of with this background, with my familiarity of history, was that there are an awful lot of things that are parallel. Things that happened in the past and things that are happening today are in many ways quite similar. And people are oftentimes not aware of that, including the fact that every time you have a wave of immigration, you have a backlash. There are people who are going to resist it. And that's happened recurringly in American history. And so understanding, what's happening today should be informed by looking at the past to sort of see how they, after the last great wave of immigration, and it was not an easy period of time, but in the end, we ended up with a society that was far more diverse. You know, there were millions of Catholics who weren't here before. There were millions of Jews who weren't here before. There were, you know, huge numbers of people from Southern, Eastern Europe who were looked upon suspiciously in the late 19th and early 20th century, but who are today part of the fabric of American society. They are considered to be, you know, part of the native born.
How far back, when you kind of think about that, how far back is that in American history?
Well, there was a great wave of immigration that took off after the Civil War, roughly starting around 1880. And it ended, I can give you an exact date, it ended in 1924 because we passed legislation that effectively shut our doors. Shut our doors for 4 decades. We didn't have immigration for 4 decades. I mean, there was a depression and there was a world war, which, you know, got in the way of people wanting to come here. But essentially, until we passed new legislation in 1965, we did not have mass immigration. And so during the time when we began to accept the people who had come in this wave, there were decades. So by the time in the 1950s and 1960s, when I grew up, it was a prosperous time, it was a comfortable time, and the idea that we were a nation of immigrants took hold. Obviously, factually, we're a nation of immigrants. That everybody understands that, I think. But seeing ourselves as a nation of immigrants in terms of a sense of that's part of national identity. That's part of American identity, that this diversity is part of it. John Kennedy published a book. He didn't write it, he had a ghostwriter, but he published a book called The Nation of Immigrants. And it was a slim book, but it was praising the contributions of this diverse population that came to be American over time. Okay? And that's another point then that's worth mentioning, is that it takes time for newcomers to adjust. You know, you don't learn a new language readily and easily. You don't understand the folkways and the mores, the way that people in the receiving country act. You don't just become them like that. But over time, you do. Second generation does. Certainly the third generation. In fact, the third generation oftentimes forgets the past. You know? Yeah.
A lot of what you are saying, there are going to be people who listen to it and say, that's a little bit left-leaning. That's kind of on the left if you're kind of divide two things up. And then you look at the sponsors of this event, and they're progressive groups.
Yeah.
How do you, what can people expect when they come to your presentation? Obviously, they're going to hear your perspective, I imagine that.
Yeah.
But is this going to be something that people who perhaps disagree, based on just the little that you've said, say, you know what, that's just going to be an echo chamber of people who are saying things that they already believe and asking questions that they already think they know the answer to.
Preaching to the choir. Yeah.
Right.
I've done many talks where I've been preaching to the choir, so I'm hoping people of diverse opinions come in. One of the things that I want to do is, I'm going to lay this out very simply in the talk. One is, let's look at where we are. Let's look at why immigrants have come. And the argument I'm going to make is that today we need immigrants. In the past, we needed immigrants too. And there's a reason for that, okay? With that necessity basically for labor comes a backlash. And how you deal with that is the issue. I mean, we're living through this right now, right? I mean, and the polarization in society is intense. When I get to the last part of the talk, what I want to do is open it up to the notion of solutions. I want to get the audience, people that agree with me, people who disagree with me, to think through what we should do to create basically a fair and reasonable immigration system. I'd point out that the last major law that structures our immigration today was passed over 60 years ago. And it had good intentions, and there were good features to it, but there were elements that were naive, and there were things that are different today than 1965. And so we need to rethink this, and we haven't. The one effort to try to do something substantive actually happened during the Reagan administration, 1986. And what happened then was that there were 3 million undocumented immigrants who were granted legal status. Okay, and then there were sanctions imposed on employers for hiring undocumented people. But that's, I mean, there have been various kinds of revisions, but they're all minor compared to the structure. So we need to rethink the structure, and we need to do it by thinking about pragmatically, what are our needs? You know, if we accept that we need immigrants, and I think the case can be made empirically that we need immigrants, where and how many, okay? I mean, because it is the case that people who are, people who are coming from sort of my perspective don't believe in open borders, contrary to what some people suggest. I don't believe in open borders. Nations have a right to control their borders. In fact, they have a need to control their borders, but you need to do it in a reasonable way. So you first thing you do is pragmatically determine what your needs are. Then you create a lawful structure that implements that, okay? And you do that in a way that is orderly, and that's a kind of a, what does that word mean? Among other things, it means you have the administrative structure, you know, the judges, the immigration judges and so on, who can determine cases for asylum seekers or for people trying to get a green card or whatever. Make the process work, right? And then you need to do it in a humane way. Those are the four things. And so what I want to do at the end of the conversation is ask the audience, how can we achieve that? What are the kinds of things you would suggest to make those things possible?
All right.
Yeah.
Final question for you. Give us the details of the event so people know how to...
Okay. The event will take place at the Watts branch of the Rock Island Public Library at 1:30 on
13th.
Friday the 13th, yes.
All right, Professor. Great discussion. I know we could talk about this stuff for so much longer, but thanks for coming in today.
No, thank you. Thank you.
We'll wrap up the program with one of our favorite stories of the week. This one comes from our sports department. Stay with us. Finally, this morning, one of our favorite stories of the week comes from the News 8 Sports Department. The name Rucker is well known around the North Scott community. For Paul and Carly Rucker, basketball has always been a family affair. Corey Kuffler shows us how they continue to build their bond as father and daughter through the game they love.
Ready, go! Last one to 21. Here we go.
Paul Rucker knew his daughter Carly would be a great coach.
Live!
I've always wanted her to get into coaching, but on her own, you know, her own thought process on when it's good for her.
Box!
A call from Coach Dave Lenenbrink got the ball rolling in that direction.
Just posed the question, had you ever thought about someday maybe coming back to North Scott?
I was pretty much like no hesitation. I was like, this could really work out and just kind of be the perfect fit. So if they overload like that.
Unless Liz can get here and she's right on the backside tight to her outside the lane, and then you can go.
For Carly, being back alongside Dad reminds her of when she first started playing.
It's been fun having him all the way up since when I was little and then growing up all these years. Obviously, too, I've seen him change a little bit.
Yep, that's you. Good.
The way that he coaches and all of those things, and then obviously I've changed over the years too.
She brings a new perspective and ideas to the sidelines.
So do we want that like early offense, like a 41 option, or do we want that just...
Yes.
I know what it's like to be in your shoes, but like if you buy in and you pick these things up, like by the end of it, you're gonna be good.
If there's an open side, yank it and dribble drive it once they're out of my way, but you got to see where it's at. Here we go.
Quick start. Lancers, here we go.
Many times they are on the same page even during the games.
And definitely super collaborative on the bench. This is the time you get to decide you're running it. Then when we go for timeouts and stuff, it just depends. Sometimes I go head first in, sometimes we talk.
Hey, you gotta find Timmons. You gotta find Timmons. When it's live, it's a little trickier just because it's going pretty quick. Rebound! But any chance like that there's a dead ball or something's going on that it's like one of us feels strongly about, then I feel like that's where we kind of draw the line of, hey, we got to stop it here, or we got to fix something here.
And we'll do the 1-2-1-1, because they jump into that too sometimes.
The Ruckers enjoying their first year coaching together.
I'm enjoying myself.
It's been good, ups and downs. That's a game of basketball and game of life, and so it's like, It's been good though.
And they share the same vision for team success.
We want to just see growth within all of the girls and just as a collective group.
It's how we are together as a group. And at the end of the day, you come and you look back and you say, hey, we left it all out there.
Lancers on 3, 1, 2, 3,
Lancers!
All right, stay tuned to News 8 throughout the day on the News 8 Plus app. Our next update here will be on News 8 at 5:30, and that's followed by your Sunday evening programming, and then we're back for News 8 at 10. Thanks for watching this morning. Have a restful Sunday, everyone.